All right, so we are recording now, and we will go ahead and get started. Thank you all for taking some time out of your midday Thursday to attend. This is the first School Financial Services webinar, and we're hoping that this proves to be a good resource and an opportunity for us to make more information in this format available. If I goof this up, it's entirely on me. But hopefully we'll get through this. Our testing has been good on trying to get through the webinar. So without further ado, we'll get started talking about what is new for school level reporting with our 2018-19 annual reporting cycle. Just as a review, to remind us that the Every Student Succeeds Act is the basis of this particular requirement, creating a responsibility for you as school districts and public LEAs to report per pupil federal and non-federal expenditures by school to us here at the DPI. And then we, in turn, are responsible for collecting this information and reporting it to the U.S. Department of Education. And just as an aside, if you do notice any issues or you're not seeing the slides, please type in the chat and we'll try to address those if they come up. But so far, it seems to be working for everyone. So our timeline for meeting this requirement, 2018-19 is the first year that we are going to be doing the official ESSA required school level reporting, reporting to the feds and to the public. So first step is beginning on Monday through Halloween. Districts and other public LEAs will be submitting their 2018-19 annual school level reporting expenditure reports by school. That is in addition to the normal PI 1505 annual reporting for school districts, but there is going to be some linking, and I will talk about that a little bit later. Over the winter, then, we will review the data that is submitted over the next couple of months, following up as necessary. You might recall from the budget submission, I had contacted a number of you looking at different things in the data, trying to learn about what we were seeing in the data. So we're going to have a similar process, although thanks to some new features, it'll cut down on the amount of contact and work involved in this, and I'll talk about that a bit later. In the spring, then, we're going to give you a formal opportunity to review your school level expenditure reporting data. But just as a reminder, as soon as the report is submitted and finalized, you will have access to it through the Reports tab. That is not changing, so you are certainly free, and indeed, I would encourage you, once your school level report is submitted, to save those, print them off, and make them available to your administrative teams and other board members, other folks in your district. But the formal opportunity will come in the spring. We are also working with colleagues across the agency to develop some training and technical assistance materials to assist districts, LEAs, and other users with analyzing and communicating the information. There's a lot of national stuff that's out there. Our view thus far is that it is primarily targeted at school business office folks and district administrators. We have identified the principal level as an area that needs some beefing up, so a lot of our discussions are focusing on that, helping give principals some context and understanding and digesting this data when it becomes available. But the plan is essentially to have a package of information to accompany that spring district review opportunity and make that available to you all. Then in June of 2020, is when we will officially report Wisconsin school level per pupil expenditures to the U.S. Department of Education to fulfill the ESSA reporting requirement. That is also when we will be making this available publicly through WiseDash as part of Wisconsin's ESSA report card. This does get a bit confusing because we have our school and district report cards set in state law, and those will continue to be Wisconsin's accountability system. But ESSA does have some pieces for its own reporting that it calls a report card, and we are implementing this in Wisconsin as a set of screens in WiseDash. So we will be developing and implementing one screen in WiseDash specifically for school level expenditure reporting. Now, I think what you're all interested in, and what I'm certainly interested in telling you about, is what's new in the report this year. By and large, there are not many changes compared to the budget report that you did last fall, but there are some, and the hope is that you will find them helpful in completing the report. So the first thing that's new is a new web address. sfs.dpi.wi.gov/WISFIP, WISFIP. The sfs.dpi.wi.gov, over the next few months, you'll start to see all of our reporting applications move to there. So we will have new links for all of our reports by the end of this calendar year. But specifically with WISFIP, this is sort of a rebranding of the combined reporting piece that the budget report was submitted through last fall. Combined reporting was based on the idea over the past several years that we were going to be combining the 1504, 1505, and the special ed reports, when really, when we're moving into a new world of WISE data and our reports to support that and school level reporting, it's much more comprehensive than that. So WISFIP is the overall umbrella that our next generation financial reporting applications will be released under. So that's the first thing that's new. And we actually have in place an automatic redirect from the old combined reporting link to this new WISFIP link. Second thing that's new compared to last fall is that third Friday enrollments from September of 2018 are going to come from WISE data. And this is going to be in the same manner as we get those enrollments for the state, school, and district report cards. So there will not be any entry of enrollment data in the annual reporting cycle. That said, we have had questions about, well, what if those enrollment numbers are not correct? Just to be clear about one thing, WISE data is not going to be modified. All districts and LEAs had an opportunity to review, audit, and correct their third Friday data last fall through the normal WISE data audit review and certification process. So whatever enrollment totals are being pulled into the school level annual report, those come from WISE data, and those are based on what your WISE data coordinator certified almost a year ago. However, if there are enrollment reporting adjustments for school level reporting that, depending on how you're reporting expenditures, either costs at different levels or exclusions, it may be appropriate to adjust enrollment on that basis. In those cases, we will consider requests to adjust enrollment. If you want to make an enrollment adjustment, you'll need to email that request to our DIPIFIN email. Make sure to include in the request relevant details, such as the district LEA and the school names, the number of students that you feel need to be adjusted, and your reasoning for it. We are going to need all of those details to evaluate the request. There are a variety of scenarios, so let me go back one slide. There are a variety of scenarios that could come up. One example that I could think of is if you have a couple of students who are sort of not formally enrolled at a high school, but they're tuitioned out in a Project Search transition program. And last year in the budget reporting, you elected to report those costs at the district level, and you would like to continue to do so, and therefore take those two students out of the enrollment at the high school. That would be the sort of request we're talking about. This is not we had an error in our WISE data submission. We screwed up our WISE data last year. That process is over. So the WISE data folks have wanted me to make that very clear that any enrollment adjustments that we do for school level reporting are really going to be tied to how you're reporting costs and how you're reporting where students are going tied to those costs, and they are going to be specific to school level reporting. Another thing that's new is that in the data input section, we've reorganized the screens for entering dollar amounts to reduce one common source of confusion last year. Last year, you may recall, we had a screen for what we called district level data and a screen for what we called school level data. And there were a large number of districts that I worked with who understood the instructions and the information to indicate that their school level dollar amounts had to be totaled up and included on their district level dollar amounts. So they were double counting those. And then when I'd follow up, we'd have to work to back those out. So we've made the instructions a bit clearer to get in manually as well. So you don't have to wonder whether or not you're uploading. There's a clear button that says if you want to do this manually, you can just click here and move on to the next page. That's how the report worked last fall in practice, but we just want to make it a little clearer for users. So again, once you get in, the school and the district level dollar amounts are all going to be on the same page now to make it a little clearer that these are all separate dollar amounts. All of them together add up to your total expenditures. Your school level dollar amounts are not a subset of your district level dollar amounts. So that was one clarification that we wanted to make for ease of use by users. The finalized section, which previously was just a summary screen, and then it had a couple of errors that may or may not come up depending on where you're at. We've actually broken out those error checks into 3 separate screens with comparisons to the PI 1505 annual report. Obviously, for independent charter schools, the PI 1505 does not apply, and for those folks, we have set it up to bypass those checks. But for school districts who submit a PI 1505 annual report, there's going to be a comparison to total expenditures, to the exclusions that have been checked on that first exclusion screen with what we might expect based on the most common woofer coding for those exclusions, and a comparison between federal revenues reported on the 1505 and what we would expect based on what you entered for your federal expenditures. We had these top level checks built in as totals last fall for the budget submission, but one task that I did manually and tediously many times is people would ask me legitimately, where is this number coming from? And I would have to go into their budget report and manually pull those accounts. So in these finalized screens, you will actually be able to click the detail on each check and see specifically which accounts are coming out of your PI 1505 to feed into this comparison. I think that'll be helpful for all of you in reconciling your information, and it will certainly create a lot less work for us, which is good. One drawback to providing this more detailed information is because of the fact that the school level reporting application and our old Sapphire application with the PI 1505 in it, they live on 2 different servers. Instead of getting a couple of totals for every district, we're getting hundreds of thousands of accounts for all districts across the state. We cannot have that as a live connection between reports. So the PI 1505 comparison data will be refreshed automatically every morning at 2 a.m. It's already been doing so for the past few weeks as we've been testing out the report. But please be aware that if you are wanting to work on your 1505 and your school level report on the same day, that those comparisons will not be live. Just to make you aware, there is a note on that screen. It says PI 1505 as of 2 a.m. But that is sort of one caveat to being able to provide more detail for those comparisons. We are also providing text boxes to explain differences. For example, if your exclusions, your expected exclusions total doesn't match what you've entered in the school level report for your exclusions, and that difference is because you've got an optional exclusion or you deviated from the standard definition, as long as that dollar amount, as long as you can explain it, the dollar amount that it shows for a difference, there is a text box where you can provide the explanation for that difference and move on to the next step. That would then reduce the need for us to follow up manually with every individual district or LEA to try to reconcile or compare those. Same thing with the expected federal revenues. So if we're looking at your 700 revenues on your PI 1505 annual report, and we're expecting so much in federal expenditures, and the number in your school level report is different, if you can explain that difference. So for example, we spent $40,000 of IDEA money on a vehicle, and a vehicle is capital equipment. It's in our capital exclusions, so that's the difference. You can put that in the text box, and ideally that would take care of it. Now I just want to do a quick walkthrough of the report. So I am going to switch to a different screen. Where is my web browser? I have to open a new one. If you'll bear with me for one moment. Here we go. All right. So I've got the red box telling me that I'm on our web browser. So I am going to log into WSFIP. It is going to give you the similar sort of secure login that you can do with WAMS, or if you have been using the DPI Google single sign-in, that is an option as well. One quirk about the report that we have been trying to run down so far unsuccessfully is if you look up here, it looks like I didn't log in. All I have to do is click the login link as a workaround, and it just gets me in there. So that is a known bug. We've been working with our central IT folks to try and resolve that, so far unsuccessfully. But we will continue to work on that and see what we can do. But I am in now, so I can get into our school level reporting application. You'll notice this looks largely the same as it did for the budget report. You might be wondering what's different, or how do I get to my annual report? So just as before, we'll go into the exclusions. And here is where the difference comes in, is we now have this drop down between the annual and the budget report. So this is where you go in to select that you're doing your 2018-19 annual. I'm going to select Middleton. They were gracious enough to provide me with an upload file, not a correct final one, but the version that they had at the time, in order to help me assist, to help me test this out. So my thanks to them for providing that file. But once you are in, we have the same old standard exclusions that we did last year. Check or uncheck. Uncheck the ones that don't apply to you. Again, certainly nothing wrong with leaving them all checked as sort of a to be on the safe side. But if you know you don't have any aid transits or any of these certain non-accountability students or this teach fund, you can uncheck those. One note on the screen is you might notice this community services piece is last. We did have one bug that we discovered through testing with the Community Service Fund 80 not populating. We did fix that, so when you go into your reports, it'll show up in the correct place. But for Middleton and a couple of other districts who started their reports, we had to manually add that back in. It shows up here at the bottom. So that is one minor difference that you will see on this screen when you go into your report. There is still the same opportunity to do an optional exclusion. Works exactly the same way as last year. So you can enter again the short description, short title, and then a longer, more detailed description here, and click update. You can also delete them. Just the same as last year. This piece works completely identically. As a reminder, you should not be putting administrative costs, your superintendent, your business office, etc., as optional exclusions. Those are all part of the costs of educating your students in your district, is providing that administrative support. Once that's done, again, you'll get the confirmation with the exclusions you have checked. I deleted that optional one that I was testing with, so there's nothing there, and I can move on to the data input screen. This will be pre-populating, so you can sort of go in. We're still doing the 18-19 annual for Middleton Cross Plains. There is a note here for the annual report, just reminding that if you do have enrollment values in your upload file, they will not hurt anything, but they won't be read in by the system. They'll be ignored. So if you want to upload, we still have that CSV available. But if you just want to go manually to the next screen, we have this blue proceed button down here. As I said, enrollment counts are coming from WISE data. So this is what Middleton's reporting last year for third Friday totals up to. I do have the note here about enrollment counts coming from WISE data and the link to contact DippyFin. And then just a reminder, because we did get this question a number of times last year, that this is enrollment, not membership. Then we have the expenditure screen. And as I said, we've got all the dollar amounts on a single screen. The district level enrollment will pre-populate here, but again, you cannot change it. And then we have all of the individual schools dollar amounts. Again, you can edit them, change the numbers as you did last year. That is no change as well. This is probably, as far as user data entry goes, the biggest change in the report is moving all these dollar amounts onto the same screen. Confirmation page is exactly the same as it was last year. We can move on to finalizing the report. And as we're looking at Middleton, the first comparison is to totals. So this is showing the difference between all the dollar amounts entered in the report and what we have in the PI 1505. It does have a total by fund to try to help you track down if you're not sure where a discrepancy is. Again, the upload file was sent a while ago, so it certainly wasn't final for the district, but it will show the difference. We are not expecting it to be to the dollar just because of rounding and totals and things. So we do have a little bit of wiggle room built into this check. It's not huge. It's sort of on the order of $100, but it is meant to address any of those rounding issues. Then we have exclusions versus expected. For those of you who got an email from me on this last fall, this is going to work exactly the same as the semi-manual process I had last year. For each of the exclusions that you have checked, that you had checked on the initial screen, which has typical woofer coding associated with it, it'll get an exclusion and then what it would expect based on the PI 1505. You can click the details button, and we can see here that for 40 funds, this is what Middleton has reported for their Fund 40 expenditures, at least what's in the 1505 right now, along with the amounts and the total. All of these comparisons work exactly the same way. So if you've got a bigger fund, it'll have more accounts in it. So that'll give you an idea of when you're wondering where we got the numbers from, this is where we got the numbers from. And then you do have an opportunity to provide this explanation in the text box, so I can change my explanation. Just say different exclusion, I'm just making something up. Save that and proceed. Then again, we've got this federal expenditures versus expected. So this will show you the particular source 700 revenues that are being brought into this comparison. This is 10 and 27 source 700 revenues, less any impact aids, less any Medicaid. And then the comparison, again, a box to enter a comment. Then we'll have the finalized screen, and once your errors are corrected, it will look the same as it did last year. Right now it is showing that the totals are different, and you'll need to fix that, and it won't let you go any farther. This is also where the check for, even if the numbers match up, if your PI 1505 is not submitted, it will give you an error for that. You do still have to have your annual report submitted in order to finalize your school level report. But once you get that, it'll be the same finalized screen. You'll have the same checkbox and finalize, and you will be done with the report. This reports menu will continue to have the district and school reports as we did last year. One little quirk that we have found, and we found this very accidentally, and it's actually a bug in the system that builds the table displays, not actually with the application itself, but the program that we use to make these nice tables is called Kendo. And making a PDF is one thing that Kendo does, but for whatever reason, Kendo does not like apostrophes. So when we were doing testing, one of the districts that we were testing with, when they were entering their optional exclusions, they actually entered an apostrophe in the name of one of their exclusions. That goofed up the PDF report. So if you're entering any optional exclusions, typing in any text, please try to avoid any apostrophes there. Our IT folks are working on contacting them to get a bug fix, and hopefully we can get that random thing taken care of. But it was truly random that came up. So that is a quick overview of the school level report. We'll just kind of go and finish up our last few items in what's new. Once reports are submitted, we will do reasonability checks on the data, just as we did with the budget report, but they'll be focused a little bit differently. So we'll be looking at annual versus budget comparisons. We'll be looking at comparing for districts, particularly those with significant Title I programs, that if a school is a Title I school and you have Title I expenditures budgeted for that school, we would expect to see that correspond to the school level annual report. Maybe not dollar for dollar, but your Title I schools should have more school level federal expenditures than ones that are not Title I. And then again, we'll look at outliers. Most of the ones that we saw made sense, and I would expect that most of the ones we see will make sense, but if something pops up, we'll definitely take a closer look at that. Here is my contact information. I am still leading our efforts on ESSA school level reporting, so you can continue to I definitely recommend email rather than calling, but I will be happy to have conversations and answer your questions. And then, of course, the ESSA School of Reporting webpage is here. I will be making a few changes since that information is no longer current based on the latest version of the report. By the time it officially opens on Monday, that will be updated. The getting access to the report piece is still the same, though. You do need to have, if you're not set up with access to do your district or LEA's school level report for 2018-19 for your year-end actuals, you will need to work with your district security administrator through ASM in order to get that set up. But if you did the budget report last fall, you should be able to do the annual report this spring. Definitely let us know if you're having trouble with that. So with all of that, we are coming up on 1 o'clock. So I don't really think we have time for any questions. Again, I will get this recording up as soon as I can, so you would be able to share it with colleagues in your districts or LEAs, or for folks who weren't able to make the webinar. But if you do have any questions, please send those to me. Thanks very much. Appreciate your all coming, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.